fourth straight Liberal win will inevitably reignite questions about how the West is represented in Ottawa. Premiers are advocating for a reset as this new federal government takes shape.
What I heard last night is a Prime Minister, and I'm hoping a Liberal Party that isn't giving up on Saskatchewan people and the role that Saskatchewan plays in the Confederation. But we'll find out.
What Prime Minister Carney has to do is unite the country. He has to reach out to our friends out west and tell them how he's going to build that pipeline, how he's going to have opportunities for people in the west.
I would just underline how critically important British Columbia is to the vision of the diversification of markets and the future of our economy in Canada, whether it's energy, critical minerals, access to markets. My hope and expectation is that they're going to work together to make this Parliament work for Canadians.
Meanwhile, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is congratulating Prime Minister Mark Carney on his win, but she's also warning him that the status quo can't continue while describing the last Liberal government as hostile. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith joins me now. Premier, it's good to see you. It's been a while. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hi, David. Nice to be here.
So you congratulated Mark Carney, but it came with that warning, vowing that you would push back against any future hostile acts from Ottawa. I mean, what does that say about the starting point of your relationship with him now that he's gotten an electoral mandate of his own?
Well, we had to make sure that it was pretty clear the things I put on the table when I met with him are the same today, now that he's won the election. And it has been a little unclear about what policies he's prepared to move on. I think what we can take from this result, with more than 300 people for voting for one of the two centrist parties, that there's a huge appetite for us to be an energy superpower, to build corridors, to get our products to market. And you heard it just among the premiers. Didn't matter what political stripe it was. I think there's been a foundational change in the aspiration that each province has. And so I hope he captures that and is able to move forward with some of the changes he needs to make in order to turn that into a reality.
He's increased the appeal of the Liberal brand in Alberta and in Saskatchewan. 28% of the vote in Alberta, 26, I believe, in Saskatchewan, and seats in Saskatchewan for the first time in the decade, one seat at any rate. I mean, do you think that tells you something about Albertans embracing this more centrist approach of Mark Carney, for example?
Well, 65% of Albertans and 65% of Saskatchewan residents voted for the Conservatives. So they wanted the Conservative vision. I think the Conservatives have more credibility when they talk about energy development. And I think we need to be perfectly frank. It was a major pivot on the part of the Liberals to launch their campaign by ending the carbon tax, which has been one of the policies that has not only exacerbated the differences between our regions, but has also been a huge problem from an affordability point of view. So I think that I hope what the Prime Minister takes away from this election is that the fringe parties got pummeled. The NDP barely exist. The Greens lost a seat and should not have an outstated influence on his government, and the Bloc Québécois lost ground as well. What people want is an aspirational government that is going to get things done, that is going to open up new markets so that we're not overly reliant on the United States. And so to think that the old Liberal NDP alliance that crushes the aspirations of Alberta and Saskatchewan is going to work on a go forward, I hope he is not of that view. I think that there's a different pathway, and I hope he takes it.
But he has certainly signaled, Premier, that he says he's a pragmatist. He wants to find ways to move forward. He wants to still pursue a climate agenda, but he says he's not completely beholden to hard and artificial caps, for example, with the emissions cap, which I know is still in the consultation process, and I know you fundamentally disagree with it. My understanding of the Prime Minister's view is that he believes in it as a policy instrument, but not necessarily with the rigidity of the previous Liberal leadership team. A lot of talk about energy corridors. There seems to be alignment at the First Minister's table. Are you not in any way more optimistic that your natural resources can find easier paths to market and you can get better cooperation with the federal government than you've had in the last 9 years?
Well, I always live in hope. But you saw that the Bloc Québécois' first move is to say they'd partner with Mark Carney as long as he didn't build pipelines. And so that's what I'm signaling is that may result in some kind of stability to put a part of his agenda through, but it's not good for the country. I think what's good for the country is to listen to what the premiers have all said, to listen to what the people of Canada have said. And there's an unprecedented opportunity for us right now to build those new pipelines so that we have market access to the east, to build north so that we can potentially not only protect our Arctic, but also find a new route over to Europe. And yeah, we should be talking about building to the east so that our friends in Ontario and Quebec are not overly reliant on American supply of oil and gas for their needs. So I do hope that because there were a lot of things said during a campaign. I do hope that those are the messages that have gotten through, because I think if that is the case, we will all prosper. We will all benefit from that. Sadly, though, we have seen with his predecessors, and many of the cabinet ministers who were at the table then are going to be at the table now. They had overly aggressive targets that were unachievable. If you try to set an emissions reduction target with a 2030 timeframe, that's only 5 years from now. The only way to achieve it is to do less, is to shut in your production. I've always advocated for a much longer time horizon, and we'll just see how pragmatic the Prime Minister is if we can find some alignment.
Right. Well, it certainly sounds like what Donald Trump has done has changed the perspective of a lot of people in the Liberal government, right? And Mark Carney has indicated that has influenced his thinking, and he wants to be pragmatic on it. So we'll see where it goes. And I know you mentioned Mr. Blanchet, and while he is an important voice in Quebec, he does not hold actual political power in Quebec. Mr. Legault has also expressed an openness, an increased openness to consider these things. So you're going to have a challenge with Quebec no matter who is in the Prime Minister's office, even if Mr. Poilievre won, because social license there is harder to achieve when it comes to an oil and gas pipeline. So, I mean, is it really Mr. Blanchet at 22 seats with Mark Carney only needing 3 votes in a parliament like this to get any kind of energy corridor legislation passed? Is the Bloc really an obstacle here if the Premier of Quebec is willing to talk to the Prime Minister of Canada and the Premier of Alberta and see if there's a compromise?
I just hope that he doesn't create an unholy alliance with any of the political parties that are opposed to building out economic corridors. And I think that the NDP has staked out certain ground, as have the Greens and as have the Bloc. And so I don't know how he's going to run Parliament. Sometimes there are formal coalitions. Sometimes there's just agreement on votes on an issue-by-issue basis. This would probably be the time right now to see all of the areas that we can find consensus on and move forward. And I make the argument, I was just out in Quebec recently. I want to do more business with Quebec. I was meeting with business leaders to find out how we might be able to buy more from Quebec and how Quebec might be able to buy more from us. Because I think that's another conversation that has opened up. Let's find new markets. Let's find more ways to trade with each other. And let's hope that this spirit of cooperation extends into this new parliament.
Well, you say you want to do more business with Quebec, but as a final point, there's a lot of suspicion that you might want to be a little bit more like Quebec. And when people like Preston Manning were talking about a Liberal win, maybe exacerbating the idea of Alberta separatism, I just wonder what your thoughts are on that. I mean, is this something you would forcefully push back against as the First Minister of Alberta, the notion that because the national election didn't go the way a lot of people in your province wanted, that it becomes a cause for separation?
Well, I have always said that I support Alberta sovereignty within a united Canada, and I think that is the viewpoint of many of the premiers, is that they want the Constitution to be respected. They want to be able to have local decision making. They want the environmental process to be at the provincial level. So I'm not alone in that. We have a process in our province where you have citizen-initiated referenda. If you have a certain number of signatures on a petition, issues can be put forward. If there is an appetite for that kind of conversation, that would be the avenue for it. But it's not something that our government would be putting forward. I believe that we've got to try to be on Team Canada, but my view has always been that Team Canada has to show that they're on Team Alberta too. And I think this is an opportunity for us to do that reset. I'm open-minded about it. I'm going to be working on that for the next number of months, but the proof will be in the action, not the talk.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, always appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.